What's up, Redemption? How you doing? John Hendricks here, as always, for a brand new episode of our favorite podcast. This week, we've got episode number 64. Finally, this is one we tried to record last week. We actually did record, but due to some technical difficulties on my end, we were not able to use that audio, so we had to re-record it. So hopefully, the second time's the charm. We brought Mr. Tyler Stevens on to join us. Since we had to redo it, we were able to schedule him on with us to talk about the new set and kind of early impressions with that. And we hope you enjoy it. We'll get right into it. That's the ambience to start the podcast here. All right, guys, welcome into a brand new episode of the Threshing Floor podcast. This is going to be episode number 64, possibly. We have recorded this episode one time before, but here we are recording it again. So, how you doing, Brad?
Having deja vu.
Deja vu, yep. Except for this time it's better because not only do we have Brad and myself on the podcast, we've got someone lurking here, and that is Mr. Tyler Stevens. How you doing, Tyler?
Hello. I'm doing well. Once again, thank you.
Yes, sir. Always fun to have you on the podcast. So, I guess we'll just jump right into it, and hopefully you guys.
Did you test the audio?
Oh, should I test the audio? Can you guys hear me? Is my mic cutting out?
Is it recording?
It's recording, I believe. I didn't hit the space bar, Tyler.
We all bring our mistakes in.
So we'll just jump right into the recent news here, and we'll start talking about some content that's come out. The community is kind of in that after Nationals period to where content is generally slower than your average expected output for the week. But we have had some content. You've got Mr. Rob M with Rob M Studios doing a couple of videos showing off the K&L starter decks. And it's kind of been like swept under the rug a little bit that starter decks have come out. Like everybody was excited about them, but then we had Nationals and then we had, IR come out, and now people are looking forward to Roots. And it's like, oh yeah, those starter decks are out. They're pretty awesome. There are, the conversations out there about the big white borders, but beyond that, I think the cards themselves and the way that the decks play are pretty well suited for what the current game is and for new players for a starting point. So it's nice to see that we're getting some video content with that from Mr. Rob M. Well, I don't even want to ask you, Brad, because I know you have not watched the videos, but have you had a chance to check it out, Tyler?
Yeah, I have. I like watching Rob's. I like how he does a short, like usually does shorts. This one's a little bit longer, and it's always clean. Like he's got both sides of the board. He's got himself on there, and then he always does some sort of text on there too. I just go on there and boom, I hit record on my stuff. But I don't even do that all the time. But he goes in there. He takes a lot of time on his videos, so I do appreciate it. Good job, Rob.
Yep, definitely want to shout those out. And again, starter decks are out. Make sure you go and support that. You can also purchase them on Amazon. But don't spam Amazon with your comment. Make sure you buy it first and then review it. But we're all happy that the starter decks are out. Definitely looking forward to how that helps develop play groups and things in this tournament season and kind of this period after Nationals before the next, big part of the tournament season starts up. There's a lot of play group building that happens here in the fall and winter months. So it'd be nice to see how those affect play group building. And then over at Land of Redemption, that's our boy Chad running that site. And there is quite a few pieces of content on there. You have an article. You don't have the A. You have an article on there from Luke Marshall detailing his tournament season, picking out the deck that he played at Nationals, and then kind of how that did at Nationals. And he came in fourth place, so he's a really good player. He had a really good read on the meta, so make sure you go and check that out if you're, still wanting to get some content on kind of wrapping up last tournament season and see how the meta shook out. I have not had a chance to read that. I don't want to assume that either of you have, but I assume that there's going to be a lot of detailed accounts of games that he's played and how he shifted his deck throughout that, working towards nationals. Luke's usually pretty detailed and stuff like that.
His was really good. It wasn't a game by game breakdown, which I know people love those. I used to do them after Nats. I used to even try to take some notes right after games to come out with some good game reports. I need to go on there and finish and just well, not even finish. I need to write my game report for this year. But Luke did it's like an intro, and then he goes into like prior to. And I liked about his was it was a lot of people's same issue that you always see at Nats is crap, what am I doing? I need to build something, or I'm double second guessing myself. So that was a real good article from the perspective of, hey, I didn't double guess myself. I was about to, stuck with what I knew and did really well.
Yeah, that sounds familiar. You had me build that that Tomb Raider, and I almost did it, but I just settled on I'm going to play the fun deck. So nice to see that someone else had those internal debates about whether they should flip last minute on something. But also with tournament season wrapping up and coming off of that, we've got people sharing a little bit more about decks that were kept kind of on the hush-hush. And one of those guys doing that is Chad, who is See the Tree. And he had an article come out for a deck he titled Black Widow, which Black Widow, it's not Matt's Widow. You're okay, Matt. It's just Black Widow because red and black. And that was one that he built for one of his playgroup members that was going to nationals, so he kept it kind of quiet. Another one is Valley Girls. I have not had a chance to look at that one, but you did glance at it, you said, Tyler?
Yeah, I looked over both of his. I love when Chad shares his decks. He has a certain flavor. As you can see, all competitive and top players, they kind of have a certain flavor to their decks. Honestly, everyone does. I like seeing when Chad gets out his decks. He's going to have a game plan. He's going to have a specific build, and you're going to see what he's thinking in his mind. He's a phenomenal deck builder, and you're going to see it art and form there. But his are really good. They're always really good reads too because he's very detailed.
Yeah. I like how he sets his articles up and it's like, okay, I had this idea. This is where it was. Something happened that shifted my focus with it, and this is how I adapted to it. And now how it stands currently. It's really, really informative for, players that maybe aren't as well adapted at flowing with the meta changes. And it's kind of cool to see that from someone who is a decent deck builder by all accounts. And then most accounts are he's a great deck builder. So there's a baseline of he's at least decent, but he's pretty good by most accounts as well.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually we'll get Brad up there, but we got to get him out of Ruth first. He's like, how am I going to get out of Ruth? They keep printing white. It's white in GOC, white in IR.
I was just about to say that. Look, man, they just came out with a whole new Old Testament white, so it's going to be hard to, even if I don't play Ruth, it's going to be hard to get away from just the white offense.
Yeah, Brad's next deck's going to be titled Ruth in the Wild. But also on Land of Redemption, there is an article. It's part 4 of a series that's been ongoing with redemption from the perspective of a 60-year-old. This is part 4. Now, I make no jokes about people's age, but it is kind of cool to see a perspective that is different than mine and kind of comes from a different school of thought. And I think this one circles around some characters that I'm pretty fond of, those being, some Genesis characters. So I'm definitely going to have to go and check that one out. I believe it's set up kind of like a devotional type thing, but that is on Land of Redemption as well. So Land of Redemption, really doing a good job here in the lull or the dead period for content, putting out a couple of pieces. That's going to bring us over to this section called Tyler Talks. And we just so happen to have our own Tyler on here, and maybe we can get him to talk about some deck builds that he's put out recently.
Did you want me to take on this section, or?
I mean, if you want.
We'll let Tyler talk about this one.
Yeah, I came out with all sorts of videos. I want to keep doing them, but there's so many different variants to a lot of these decks that are being constructed right now or going on in my head. But The first one was Welcome to the Wilderness. That's what I played at Nationals for Iron Man. I only played 2 games, but it was against 2 good people, and it was 2-0. So it was very solid. I also liked the fact that I was able to play just in front of other people. So there was just, hey, IR's out. I accumulated as many of the cards as I could, put the deck together. I mean, it kind of helps having a background on the set, and started playing. Josh P and Jeremy, and Welcome to the Wilderness is the video I did for that deck, and that's wilderness offense, wilderness defense, and seeing all the new dominants, the grind of how wilderness plays, and how quickly they can get their heroes and resources out, and then what the defense can do to just annoy you the whole time. So I was really excited to get that one out there, and then Patriarchs, Prophets, and Dominance. Oh my. John, you're a little familiar
Let's
with
go
that build.
blue.
You're familiar with that build. That's
Oh, you gotta talk about beating me with it.
it's the regionals.
Now, granted, you did look at my deck and say I would take that out. I would take that. I'd put that in, and I played with your changes to my deck.
Well, sucker.
So I would like to put that on the record.
That's
But
fair.
yes, I am a sucker.
But yeah, that's the. I just pretty much took Jeremy's Nationals defense, put it with the deck I ran at regionals, and now that Blue has new toys, all I did was take a couple of those toys, put them in with the old deck, swapped up the defense a bit, and it runs very well. So I loved putting that one kind of back out there. I just wanted to show a different take on Patriarchs that I already had ready to just kind of put out another video that's, in my opinion, a very competitive deck, where a lot of people overlook it because it just wasn't GOC, and it might further get lost because, oh, it's not IR. It's another build with Patriarchs that's very good. And then the last one I did today is Hide Your Souls. It was very similar to my Wilderness build, but what I did was I focused on the Meek Soul aspect with both Burial and Israel's Rebellion, the dominant. And so you get 2 massive blocks where just all souls are gone, but the Wilderness offense is really good at soul gen. So underdeck all my Meeks, shuffle all souls in play, and I just pop them right back out with my offense on your side. Just have those 2 big dominants where you can really play a chump style defense and still have blocks in a chump, which is very scary. So yeah, I was busy last week or 2.
Definitely. I remember talking to you last week when we were going to record, and you were like, I have one video I'm thinking about putting out. Here we are a week later having to re-record this episode, and you've got 3 videos out. So I would say slow down, but don't slow down. Just keep getting to it and get to some of those blue builds that I know you got in there. I like the fact that you remember Chad. We were just talking about him and his ability at deck crafting and building. He had his deck he called Blues Clues. And he was like, for some of the weaknesses that Genesis has, like on the enhancement side, you can kind of leverage that with blending in green. And your deck is very similar to his in that approach. My favorite aspect of any of those decks, I think, is how you leverage, and seeing it firsthand is kind of annoying, but leverage the add to battle with Chariot of Fire. And I know you're big on that, so how fun is that to play when somebody thinks they've got you in a tight spot?
It's so good. I think people are just now remembering, I guess, how good Add to Battle is, or they're learning. But yeah, I mean, here, I'll band all my guys and make you waste whatever you can. All right, yeah, looks like you win the battle. Chariot of Fire. I grab Elisha, and then I look at your hand, potential CBN, like it's a discard enhancement an evil enhancement from your deck. That is massive value for an Add to Battle. And then I can play like a CBN 2 Bears or something. You're not really stopping that. And guess what? Not only do I get a second coming back, but I get a second Add to Battle back. So it's really strong. I want to make an Angel of God Chariot of Fire. That's very easy to do with Moses being white-green. So I have ideas in my mind for where I want to go with that. But yeah, Chariot of Fire, Angel of God, that sounds fun.
That definitely does. Being able to leverage those dominants early on is kind of the fad we've had recently. You know, speeding out, getting the dominants, but you're trying to use those dominants to almost kind of like, I guess you've been building this wilderness set or a set that included the wilderness stuff to where it's like resource accumulation, but then just trying to win like the attrition war. And here you are now, you're like, I'm going to take the stuff that didn't come from that set and try to make it play that way too.
Yep, I love it.
So it's almost like it's soaked into your mindset.
It's true, and I love when the meta just continues to open, because a lot of people, we've been in GOC, it's a phenomenal set. It's still going to be meta relevant for a very long time, but at the same time, you can make other decks with other sets. And in the video today, I was talking about what's really cool is you have these other cards. Sure, you got a bunch of the defenses, Israel's Rebellion, and some of the offense, like the heroes and stuff, but you look at, there's pieces from all these different sets that come together to make this deck how I designed it.
Yeah. Well, that's quite a bit on deck building here in the middle of the news section. So once you build those decks, you know what you're going to want to do, right, Brad? You're going to want to play them. Play them more than a couple of times in the entire tournament season.
So I was just looking at Tyler, your deck on YouTube, and Chad's deck from Black Widow and stuff. And honestly, like, those are the types of decks. I just look at the cards. I'm like, yeah, this is definitely like a little bit more my style as far as like getting excited about playing them. So I like that. And
wait, which one was your style?
Both of them kind of are a little bit.
The Wilderness and the Genesis one?
Not the Genesis. The Valley Girls or whatever it was.
Oh, Chad's,
yeah. No, I don't know that I could get on blue. I just, like, I know it's powerful. I just can't, like, I can't force myself to build a blue deck yet.
Oh, that's fine. I was hoping, I didn't catch at the beginning because I started reading on the outline here, but I was kind of hoping that you mentioned that you were into the Wilderness, so I could tell you that you were a grindy player with Tyler here to back me up.
Oh, I am in on the Wilderness.
So that's a grindy play style. That is you all day long. It's almost like Tyler went and built this set for you and me. A little bit of blue to appease me, a Wilderness grindy set to theme to
what's
help
that?
you
What's
out.
that say about the creator? If you're calling the set grindy, you know?
He's a little bit grindy too, I would say.
Got a little background in that.
Little background in the grind.
But hey, I like the add to battle thing, because then you could just grind it out even more and actually win faster. So you're grinding it, but you're winning faster. That's the goal.
Okay, as long as we're not bumping and grinding with our decks, I think we're good. But
Wow.
you get those deck lists that are coming out. You build that deck. You want to test it out. Where do you test it out right now? You know, official tournaments are slower going. They're not as frequent with local play groups and stuff, although some of them are still planning on jumping right into it. But if you want an avenue to play, you have these unofficial tournaments that we've talked about ad nauseum, and I'm going to continue to keep talking about them because they're awesome for the game and the community to have, you know, an outlet to source, you know, deck ideas, test them out, and play against people that you're not used to playing, so you get experience against various play styles. And these unofficial tournaments are awesome for that. So the first one being the Zoom Discord Invitational. That's just a reminder for people that are playing, and just to give awareness to it. They are in series number 14, and that is in week 4. Week 4 just started for them. So week 4 pairings are up and active there. And then we have the Lackey Grand Prix getting ready to run the 12th version of that unofficial tournament hosted by Jay Chambers. Zoom Discord's hosted by Rob M. But the Lackey Grand Prix number 12 has open signups now through September 3rd. So you've got time to take that deck list. You've got time to text Tyler and ask him, or DM him, blow him up on the Discord, whatever. Hey, how do I do this? What's the lines of play? Figure it all out. And then you're ready to go by September 3rd when the tournament should start. And it's going to be standard type 1 gameplay with Israel's Rebellion legal for play, which that's a sounding alarm for the fact that IR is on Lackey if you've been living under a rock. So that is out there for you to go. If you haven't looked at the set, you can see it on Lackey. You can build decks with it. It is fully accessible now for you to get ready to rock and roll. So, Brad, big question. Jay told me to put you on the spot. Are you playing in the Grand Prix?
Okay, so
Incoming excuse.
No, check this out. So last week, whenever we recorded, but couldn't use all that, all that
Yeah, I'm
beautiful
sorry,
podcast
Man, keep bringing it up.
media that we had. And for the record, it wasn't on my end, but that's my last one. But when we talked about the Grand Prix, I actually wrote it down on my calendar that the sign up due date was September 3rd. So I have it on my calendar. Whether I'll sign up or not, that's still undecided, but it is there, and I will. So what I don't want to do is sign up and then not play. Get the games in each week. But if I think I can get the games in, I'm all in. I just need a deck from Tyler, and then I will definitely be in.
He's got 3 of them out there.
No Ruth.
I'm gonna.
Yeah.
Look,
Ruth is not in the wild just yet.
how about this? I'll take your Into the Wild deck, or what was that called? Welcome to the Wild Wilderness. Welcome to the Wilderness. I'll slap David Hart After God in there, and we'll be good.
You're good. That'll work.
He can get all that Old Testament stuff. So
David in the wilderness.
David in the Wilderness. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I guess whatever it takes to get you to play, Brad. And
he did. He ran from King Saul for a while, so I guess you could say he was in the wilderness.
This is what we call a deflection. Because I don't think I'm gonna have time. So instead of having pressure on me, I deflected it to you. So I appreciate you standing in the gap there.
You're not planning on playing?
I don't think so, man. Time is.
How about
time
this?
is,
If I play,
tight.
you play.
If you play, I play. If we get, let's see, what is today's date? The 28th. So this will be out by the 30th.
Plus 2, John.
Well, I'm also thinking in my head about a realistic number. If we get the podcast streamed or listened to at least 100 times by then, I'll play. How about that?
Okay.
Is that fair?
Oh,
That's a goal. So all you got to do is listen to the podcast, tell your friends to listen to it, and maybe you can force me into play.
well, you didn't say unique listen, so I'm just gonna put it on repeat.
It doesn't count that actually. So appreciate that though.
I'll have a ticker on my.
Nice.
I'll show you.
But in addition to those unofficial tournaments, there's also one more, and I do have a clip that I'm going to play here from Mr. Jared Strauss, who is him on Discord, and this is for the tournament that's going to be called Hymns House of Highlights, and this is going to be a bi-weekly casual Friday night tournament over Discord, and so you'll be playing with physical cards, and it's to kind of give a Friday Night Magic type feel to a casual tournament, another outlet for people to play decks that aren't necessarily the super competitive decks, but are the fun deck, or they want to try something out that they haven't played before. But I do have that clip. I'm going to play it for you guys now. And Tyler, Brad's already heard it, so you listen to it, and then you tell me if there's any questions
All right.
that you would have as a innocent bystander.
Hello, everybody. Him here. I am on the Threshing Floor podcast to let everybody know about the Him House of Highlights tournament series that I'll be hosting. This is an online webcam bi-weekly tournament that'll be at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time for people to be able to play on the Redemption Discord. It's got its own category called Him's House of Highlights. You just have to scroll all the way down, and under the channel sign up is where you would go in to be able to put your signups for it. That's also where we're going to be playing the games. Under that category, if you look, there are voice channels, and then they are numbered by tables, and those tables are where we'll be playing the games. If you don't know how to play webcam games, don't worry. There are some guides on the how-to under the Zoom desk, and I've also put some under the tournament chat, so people have the ability to learn how we're going to run things, and then we'll kind of jump off and start playing. The goal of this tournament series is just to create a F&M style of feel where people can come and play casual or competitive Type 1 games. This tournament series in August will be running Israel's Rebellion and Israel's Deliverance pretty much until they are legal for sanctioned play. This is an unsanctioned tournament. There are no prizes so far. I might be providing my own prizes for it, just for promotion, but realistically this is just to allow people to play. I will also be recording the games to put online if you're either playing against me or on table 1 when we have odd numbers I'll be setting out. So come in, join, have fun. It's not anything to be scared of. I think if you're interested in playing Games of Redemption, you should definitely just jump in. Jay Chambers might be running a tournament as well on Fridays. His and my tournament will be running in tandem with each other to create a weekly tournament every Friday for Redemption. But more information on that from Jay himself. So ask him if you're interested. That's it for me. Have a wonderful day. Cheers.
So that's Jared talking about the Hymns House of Highlight tournament that will be happening every other Friday. Since we set that up and did that fancy little recording, hopefully you guys thought that was decent quality there and you could understand it well. But I believe Jay is no longer able to do his due to scheduling conflicts, and maybe Jared is going to do his every Friday that he's available now instead of bi-weekly, but I'm not 100% sure. But I do know those are the details for Jared's tournaments as they currently stand. So, you got any questions after listening to that?
No, I mean all the info was there, so it made sense. Yeah, I'll just have to go check Discord for all the details, but seems easy enough.
Yeah. And I believe, based on scheduling, he had his first one and then he was off last week. So I believe the next one would be this coming Friday. So make sure you guys reach out to him and, let him know if you want to play. And if you scroll down on the Discord, you will actually see Hymns House of Highlights. And that is a channel and there's rooms in there. And that's actually where you'll get paired off to play the games. And again, it's a webcam tournament, so you will be playing with physical cards. But that's yet another avenue for you to take these cool decks and to test out all these new cards in the card pool, because there is a ton of things hitting the card pool all at one time, which is fantastic. I know I've only been around Redemption for a few years now, but have you ever seen anything like the amount of cards that are dropping into the card pool, Tyler?
No, I never had. The Priest was a massive set back in the day. I mean, that's it. That's all I can even remember was Priest being a large set. We have the starter deck, which even though it came out last year, I mean, it wasn't official or it wasn't legal, so the starter deck came out, and then IR comes out, and we're getting Roots, and we just got a ton of promos and fundraiser. Like, it's all levels too. It's not just a slew of cards to follow the biggest set that's ever come out, and arguably, not even arguably, I think the highest power level set. So then you follow that up with all different levels, from literally starter decks to promos to fundraising.
Watered down IR set. I'm sorry. We'll talk about that in the main topic here in a little bit, but I just wanted to throw a little bit of shade at you. You come off that power level, you have all these cards. You set me up. I'm sorry.
I don't mind at all. Yeah, just different levels all coming in, and then what? Few months out, 2 months out, 3 months out for Roots. Like, here's another 224.
Yeah, that sounds right. And Brad's gonna put some Roots cards in his Ruth deck, and then it's gonna be Roots and Ruth. Or he's gonna really name it the Roots of Jesse. Hey, there you go. That's pretty good.
Ooh.
There you go.
That should be my my Discord name, so I can change it from Brad.
Roots and Jesse.
Of Jesse.
Okay. So Another thing to give an update on is the fundraiser that is ongoing. I know we talked about it a lot when we were funding Roots, and now that Roots is fully funded, we are still doing a smaller goal of $6,000, and that is for you guys to be able to receive your cards from GOC and IR in packaging that is not Persecuted Church with a sticker on it. And I'm not trying to knock Rob for being resourceful. It's kind of cool that he's been able to save money in order to bring us, cards that don't have the added cost of packaging built into the price to raise the price of the cards. That's all well and good. But now we have an opportunity to fund this and actually get product that looks good. And I think the biggest thing about the game right now is trying to make it appealing for new players. New starter decks are appealing. They've got great packaging. And then you get the new set, the expansion set, and it's a box, and then you open the box up and they're in other set packaging with a sticker on it. Not really the cleanest presentation, but we get a chance to clean that up by raising money for this. So you can go and purchase all of the fundraiser items that you've seen people talk about, share pictures of, all of those. There's a couple of new options for this fundraiser, which are inspired by Roots. And we're currently sitting at $3,802, unless there's been an update since, but I'm not sure that there has. And the goal is $6,000, so we're almost there. We're closing in on $4,000 roughly, and $2,000 to go. And assuming that the elders have been accurate with stating that the fundraiser will at least be open through the end of the year, I don't see any reason that we're not going to get there. It's just kind of a slow burn with everybody having pushed for the first goal of $18,000. So it's kind of slow moving, but just want everyone to be aware that that is still there. So go and check out the website. It's in the announcements, and I believe you can also access it from, actually, no, you cannot. I don't believe. Is it on the landing page?
No, the fundraiser I don't think is on the landing page, but there is a key point about the fundraiser. So if it was just like, hey, here's new packaging for GOC and IR, it's like, hey, not only do we want you to fundraise, but we want you to fundraise something that theoretically you already purchased. Like that wouldn't be a good approach. So what the whole purpose of the fundraiser for new packaging is for Rob to be able to sell on eBay and Amazon and in stores. So with the old packaging, you can't legally sell in stores because they don't know how to either obtain it or market it, whatever they can, because the ISBN doesn't necessarily match, so that they can't sell it in their stores. So with the new, you'll see on Amazon, that's why Israel's Deliverance is on Amazon. They have their own packaging. So the barcode matches the product. So with GOC and IR, the barcode will match the product, and now you'll have GOC and IR going to Amazon and other large retailers and online.
Oh, that's awesome. I was not aware that was a driving factor for it. So that's really cool.
Yep.
And it kind of shows Rob's direction of trying to get these things out to a new audience through bigger retailers like Amazon and whatnot, which is really cool. And again, pushes the focus of we're trying to get new players, put the product in new players' hands. We want it to look good, look nice. And in part of doing that is also, I've got this title here, Stick the Landing, because I don't know what else to call this except for, like a small miracle. But the QR code now no longer takes you to a post on the forums, on the boards, and it takes you to a nice, clean landing page on Rob's website, Cactus Game Design, and it's basically like a PDF style. It's got links. It looks really clean, and short of having a website that all traffic is generated to, that's just redemption, like redemption CCG, redemption whatever.com. This is kind of the next best thing, and it's really cool to see all of the different links. They're clean, and included with that is a K&L quick start guide, which is awesome. I knew you guys were working on this, but you kind of out of nowhere, you actually shared the news the other day. You texted me and was like, hey, just keep an eye on that announcement channel.
Insider info.
I had no idea what it was, and I was like, oh snap, is it a new website? And it's not, but it's really close to it when it comes to being able to share the game with someone and not want them to just get bogged down with trying to find information. So I'm really excited about that. I think it's one of the most important, updates or changes to the game. And I know that you looked at it, Brad, when we recorded this episode the first time, not to keep beating that dead horse, but yes, it looks awesome. So what are your thoughts on that, looking at it?
Yeah, so I think first impression, like when I first clicked on it, first of all, I was kind of like, man, where was this when we first started? Because it'd have been so much better because we didn't have a whole lot of direction or people to really help us. Derek did a good job when he had time, but we could only bug him so much. But like having something like this just to start out with and be able to say, hey, here's the starter decks, here's how all this works, some general rules. You're not looking at a 150-page rule book. You're looking at essentially about an 8 or 9 page guide here. I think it's a huge step in the right direction for onboarding new players.
I really like the fact that it feels like a mini reg plus the glossary of terms that's in the on the back end of it. So you have like all these rules and whatever and how things work. And then you have the glossary of terms, and it's just so much, but this is broken down to only the things that apply to the new starter decks. And then you've got links for all kinds of other things. It looks really good. I know that Tyler, you were involved with doing the square code barcode and setting up that initially. So I'm guessing you had a little bit of work, got your hands dirty on this a little bit. So what was your role in doing that?
So when I set up the QR code originally, that was a dream I had for a long time. I wanted to do a QR code before I was an elder. It was just kind of everything worked out in my life to where I finally had some time opened up, and then making the QR code, I took all time to research to see what was the best way to do it. So we have the URL to where we could always change it. And that was really important for me to get the right one. So one, I could pull data and metrics off the QR code. And two, I can always and I shared the information out with the elder team and Rob. We could always change the URL to go somewhere else. So it was always going to go to the forums for the start with bigger plans in mind. And we talked about a quick start guide. And it's not just the fact, I mean, when you all see the cards, it's like, wow, we are getting all these new cards. That takes months and months to do. And then we don't just have new cards. We have the QSG. We changed up the landing page for to have the PDF, so that it's more work. We're doing even more on the back end to where we have more stuff coming out. It's really exciting. So there's a lot of content in general for the QSG. We had the idea for it a while back, and then we were just really busy with testing. And Joe Schaefer stepped up. Said, hey, and kind of we're like, hey, you're a teacher, let's use our strengths here. And Joe stepped up and knocked it out the park, laid out a lot of the content. And I mean, I just went in and gave comments. That was it. Read over it, gave comments. That was about it on my end. And then it kind of went stale for a little bit as so many massive projects were happening leading up to Nationals. As pretty much soon as Nationals was done, it was like, all right, let's hit the ground running again. Gabe jumped in and started knocking out some graphics, and Marcus actually came in and pieced all this together, I felt like, too. So really big on them three, just how much work they did on the QSG. The PDF Gabe took the PDF for the QR code and pieced that together. So work was distributed everywhere, which made it very nice because we are already playtesting the next set. So that was already sent out and just about sent out to playtesters, but we're on version 2 of the document and we're having a great time. So we are way ahead on the new set, working on some more documentation and updating the reg and the order, and everyone's just doing a lot of work on the back end.
Yeah, well, for all the work that has gone into this point for kind of the vision that you guys have shared, that we're trying to clean the wording of the game up, clean the interactions up, clean the card design up to where cards aren't doing too much to where they're confusing. Just everything, simplifying it, new starter decks, this new landing page, potentially new packaging, all of this coming together just to make it a cool product for us to share with people and bring new players in. So it's really cool to start seeing the fruits of you guys' labor. I know that I couldn't imagine all the hours from each individual, and then you compound that for the whole group. So we're going to take a moment here and celebrate you guys. Here, have yourself a cheer on the podcast. There you go. Congratulations, guys. Take a bow. We know John Early did all the work.
John's been killing it on this set. Whew.
Oh, has he?
Yeah,
I'll have to DM him.
I forgot. I think I was gone for a weekend or something. I don't know, probably on vacation. But I was gone for a weekend, and
one of your many vacations.
Yeah, one of them. And I came back, and I think I came back to 80-something comments on the document that I had to go in. And then we're doing weekly calls right now to shore up documentation. And John and I are staying on to do graphics, and the team's attacking the document in a good way. This is all the new set. We're attacking it and putting graphics together and wording, and everyone's in there. It's exciting. So we're gonna have all the legwork up front, and the thing is, all this other content coming out and all these new cards. Really, before we get the packaging, we want to have, like Brad said, where was this when I joined? I don't want that again for a player. I don't ever want to hear that from a player moving forward. There should be everything lined up for them, to where when they buy Redemption, they scan the QR code. Here's a clean looking product. One, they bought a clean looking product. They scan the code. Here's everything, and they learn how to get connected into the game, because this new packaging should be bringing in people from all over the place, and our numbers should be going up. So we want to have documentation done before we start reaching even more people.
Yeah.
I think even from like a teaching standpoint, I think a lot of us that play the game love to share the game, or if they have people to share it with. I think the easiest way to get somebody into the game is to get them to play a starter deck. You know, that is kind of the initial push in. But we were talking a little bit last week about, you know, our experience at the Royal Rangers, you know, trying to share Redemption in like a short window of time with little kids, not little kids, but like, you know, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, somewhere around that age, with like, hey man, you got only so much time to capture their attention and to help them to understand this complex game, to pull them in. And it felt impossible. Like, you know, not trying to say anything negative about the IJ and stuff, but it has been a long time since that came out. But with this new starter deck, it's like, it's simple enough, but complex enough to keep people engaged. But it's simple enough to understand. It's like you said, we have these guides out. I can put that document in front of them on their phone or print it out, and they can just look at it and say, "Oh man, okay, I can see where this lines up with this, and this is answering my questions." I would be much more motivated to try to show somebody the game with what we have now than even just a year or two ago. So I say definitely congrats. I think we're definitely going in the right direction when it comes to like bringing new people into the game.
It's always good to see the work that they're putting in with that goal in mind, because you guys told us the goal a while back. I don't know when it first was shared, but I mean, that was the whole point of rotation as well, is just to clean the game up and give it a easier jumping in point for people, instead of having that massive card pool with all those difficult worded cards or things that had crazy erratas. And here we are, just fast forward a couple of years, and it's like you're starting to actually see it, and it's like we're getting close. The finish line is still ahead of us. We still got some work to do to get there as a community and as a game, but you can see it, and it's really cool. It's almost like we've come into that part of the track where fans are cheering. They don't know who's going to win or whatever, but the crowd's there at the end to see that final run towards it. And it's like we're in that final run. We're starting that phase now and getting packaging with with that QR code with the new landing page. Oh, that's going to be really nice when it happens.
Now there are a couple areas even on that landing page that we could improve a few things.
You gonna work on it?
We. I'm still trying to figure out if I can get on Lackey next week. But I say we, because it makes me feel better. If I just said like, man, y'all need to get this going, that's not the pastoral answer,
We don't get our feelings hurt. I need feedback. Jay was giving me feedback. Jay and I are close. He was giving me feedback, and it doesn't hurt my feelings.
Jay will always give you feedback.
Jay will always give you feedback. So, like, if there's stuff on your mind, or it's like, hey, I don't. Now, there's a difference in just being like, hey, this sucks. It can be better. And there's a difference in being like, hey, I love what I'm seeing. I think this could improve this way. There's two different ways of saying stuff. I still won't mind if you just come at me and say, hey, this sucks. This can improve. I might be like, all right, well, you don't know how to talk to people. But I'm still going to hear that opinion. Like, I'll still see it. So definitely bring whoever. I feel like all the elders are very open. Bring any information to them to make it's our product. Now, if you keep bringing ideas, we're going to ask you to do some of the work, but ideas are good. So keep them coming.
Yeah. I think I reached out to you when it first went live and mentioned where you click on to view the reg and then it takes you to the download page. And I believe you said that was something that unfortunately couldn't change right now because of the way the Cactus website is.
Correct.
But, I hope I approached that the correct way. I was like, hey, I'm really digging this, but hey, this one little thing doesn't make sense. Or could be better, but is that how Jay? No, I'm just kidding. Jay's like, this sucks, and if it was me, I would have done it this way.
He's bold on his opinion, good or bad. I'm not for the right or wrong, so I love hearing it.
So I guess we'll get ready to transition into our main topic here, which is going to be talking about the early impressions of the new set, Israel's Rebellion. But as we transition into that, definitely want to make it known for you guys that the podcast is sponsored by Covenant Games. So make sure you go and check them out if you want to see the results from Nationals. All that is posted now. You can go into the museum page, and then you can find this year's Nationals, find all the results, hit the shop, buy a couple of items, buy out some of that old stuff so that we can get John to buy some new stuff. And if you're looking for Israel's Rebellion at Covenant, you won't find it, unfortunately, because John is waiting for them to be packed with roots in order to stock up on them. So be on the lookout for that in a couple of months. I know that our Nationals, Rob mentioned that IR was going to be out sometime in October. I don't know if that time frame has changed or not, but at least at Nationals, that's what was mentioned. But with that, we will jump right into talking about Tyler's baby. His little baby child has grown up. It has entered the world, the adult world here, to be reviewed by all those people that will say that it just sucks. But early impressions for me, I'll give you mine, and then Brad, you can go. Tyler, you have impressions because you were there at the inception of the idea all the way to now.
Yep.
So I guess your early impression is really your late impression. But my first impression was, okay, we'll just go ahead, cat out of the bag. It's got fat borders. Okay, let's just go ahead and say that. It's got big borders. We know that. If you get past that, there also is the new printer having a new card quality or card stock. The cards are slightly thinner, and they have this coating that's more like playing cards. And when you handle the cards, they do feel a little bit, I don't know, like more like they're ready to withstand finger oils and things. And I guess I feel like you could probably smudge them up and then wipe them clean a little bit better than you can the ones without the coating now. But also the fact that it seems like the printer did a really good job centering them up for the most part, and the cuts are really clean compared to the printer that we were using, which, not to knock them, but you would get some cards that were off-centered or had some rough cuts every now and then. And all of the ones that I've handled from IR, and I did buy 3 boxes at Nationals of it. So those are all pretty well centered, and then good cuts. And so from just the actual physical card product, I think it's solid. But I know that people's mind is immediately going to go to, these have fat white borders. Why are they fat white borders? And we've talked about that. And that was just, an oversight from using a new printer that increased the bleed area. So it ended up making almost double the amount of white space or whatever. But once you get beyond that and you start reading some card abilities, you start looking at them, you get the layout of, okay, this card is blue. So the border on this card is blue. I didn't think that I was going to like that or appreciate that initially, because I thought, okay, this card is going to look super basic. But you guys did a really good job with the design of that, to where I'm looking at a blue card right now in my hand. I'm looking at Ruben, the Preeminent. And it's got a light blue at the top, transitions to a dark blue as the frame moves down. The identifier line being in a bubble now, so that you see it really well, and you don't have to. There was a few cards I've noticed in the last couple of sets where the identifier line over a certain color of the artwork had to have like a black masking behind it so that you would be able to actually read the wording. You don't really have that problem if you're using the bubble here. You've got the black behind the verse, which is really cool. And then you've got the set down at the bottom, set icon. And then you have all of the illustration credits. But also now there is a stamp that says copyright Cactus Game Design Incorporated, and has the date that the set came out. And that looks really cool. It makes the bottom look a little busy, but not too bad. So that's a super in-depth look at the actual bare bones of the cards without looking at the actual abilities, and I really like all of that. What do you think, Brad? You got anything you want to add there on your initial impressions of the cards? Or the set as a whole, if you want. I went that direction, but you can go wherever you want.
So first, I couldn't help thinking about you asking the spirit to lead you where the cards are without borders. But
Please do so. I will go there. Full art cards, no borders. I am good.
I just had Oceans playing in my head the whole time. But so I definitely agree with what you said about the background of the card. Initially, whenever they were talking about it, I was like, oh man, this is gonna make it like kind of bland and boring,
Yeah. My initial thought was, I thought it was going to look like an Uno card almost, to where it's like it's trying too much to force it down.
But no, actually, I really like it, especially like when it's all laid out. If you got the same kind of style of defense, like you're playing all green or whatever, pale green, all your cards are pale green, they all look the same. Man, that's going to be good. I like that. Even the split enhancements and all that stuff. I think that we can officially say goodbye to teal now. I know that teal is still legal in rotation, but now that we have an Old Testament set where like the Tabernacle Priests and all that stuff are clay, we can officially say goodbye. A couple other things I really like that have kind of bothered me, not really much, but like when I first started playing, was the dominance and the colors of them, because they look like they're all the brigades, like on the lamb, and as well as the fortresses. So I'm like super glad that y'all changed that. They look good. So little things like that, like it doesn't look like brigades anymore, which was super confusing even for like more advanced players sometimes when you're trying to add up brigades or whatever. So I think the only thing you didn't mention, or I could be wrong, was the scripture is like got a dark background now. It's different in the box.
Yeah, I mentioned
cool.
that.
Okay, well I checked out then.
Thanks to know you're listening. But yeah, I really like it also with the fact that all of these verses are white. There was a couple of GOC cards that had, or no, not GOC cards, or maybe it's promo cards. Somewhere I've seen where it's got the like Jesus's words in red. Maybe it's like this on Harvest, and it's red. I'm not super big fan of that one, because I think I get the point of adding the the black is to make it contrast so that you can see it a little bit better. And it draws attention to it. But then I think people that are going to struggle to see it, if you change it to red over black, they're going to struggle even more to see it. So I get that that's kind of just an unfortunate consequence of making the decision to do that and put the black text box back there. But it is one thing that I think about with that. So from the actual cards and going to a new printer, we switched for the starter decks and now this first set that's come out, Tyler. What are your impressions from the Elder side of the print quality from the new printer and things like that?
Yeah, I love the border matching the brigade of the card. As for the quality, I love it. I like the feel of the card. It feels like a higher quality. The big borders, we did all the proofs. There was no way we would have known that. It's a new printer. We learned, and now we know what to tell them to go over the bleed space. So that's been caught for roots. But yeah, big borders. I thought it was going to be so much worse. When I saw it, I was like, oh, okay, that's not that bad. Putting the year down there, that was a big decision. Because being able to kind of say, like, there's a set, but it's really cool. Now you know when a card came out. Now you know when that promo came out. You know in that set. There's times where it's like, I've been playing this game for a long time. I'm like, man, when did TXP, when did the Thesaurus X Praetorius or whatever, when did that set come out? I don't remember. So it's cool. I like the changes. If I'm critical, the only thing is that with the brigades and the border matching, you really have to make sure your art is either different or you have to differentiate your card, because there's some that just, oh, which card is this? Oh, which Son of Jacob am I grabbing? So you want to make sure, okay, nothing's too similar, or you can just think you have the wrong card. That's something we saw during graphics, while doing graphics.
I hadn't thought about that yet, actually. And now that you bring it up, I'm like, oh, yeah, going through my head, I'm going to, when I start building decks with the physical cards, because right now it's kind of just theory crafting things in my head and whatnot, but I could see what you're saying about the different artwork, especially since you guys found this great Mongolian or whatever art for the Sons of Jacob, to where they all look like they're the same artist and same style painting that's used for each of the characters. So you guys didn't make that super easy on us in the style of the art, but I have not noticed a significant issue, but I could see that coming up for some people right now.
So artwork's tough. Like, I've been looking for art on this next set. It is tough to find because you got to find the right quality, the right resolution, and it has to be public domain. And then what are you searching by? Like, you're searching by scripture and you're trying to describe the time frame and the people in the Bible. There's just simply not a ton of art on everything, especially if it's not a big moment in the Bible. So if you look at, I can show you a dozen images on Joseph and color code and Joseph being sold into slavery. But can I show you any of his brothers? Probably not. So this one artist did all 12. I'm a big fan of a theme also having the same feel from a graphic perspective. So yes, they look a little Mongolian, but at the same time, it was the same look and all 12. And man, trying to find art for 12 Sons of Jacob, that's a daunting task.
I'm definitely not going to knock you on it. I just got to throw a rib shot at every now and then. Or I would not be me.
Yep.
But I guess what have you heard? Because I know you've heard a little bit here. I think you mentioned it at Nationals that you had heard, and I jabbed at you earlier with the phrase "the watered down set." I know that there's some community, I guess, expectations of what the set was going to be, and then seeing the set, and there's some people where it's what they expected, hearing everything, and then some people are having an adjustment period too. Well, we kind of told you this, we're going to have to tone it down a little bit, and this is what the set bears. And a lot of people are having to process that or adjust that. And so you get a wide range of kind of reviews on this in the early part here before we actually start seeing a lot of gameplay with people crafting unique decks and then playing against other unique decks. But early community perception, what have you heard from the community, and how do you feel about how the community, do you think it's going to end up being a transition to a mostly positive, or do you think it's going to kind of be, you have some people that love it, some people that hate it type of thing?
No, I think it'll mostly be positive. If we keep making sets at where they were at from a power wise, like, I love this community. Usually people that do complain, it's gonna be, that's what you're gonna hear. That, or it's what people are gonna remember, you know. But bad news travels fast, or good news travels fast, bad news travels faster, kind of thing. So you're gonna hear the complaints, they're gonna come out, or that negativity is gonna start spreading, and it's like all of a sudden people start forming more opinions. Like, I just told you about the artwork looking like the same thing, and you were like, "Oh, I didn't notice that." like, your opinion can change, and when it
But
comes
now
to
I do,
negativity-
and I'm mad about it.
Yeah,
Bangs
exactly.
on desk.
So from a I say I've said this for a long time about the community lagging from a competitive standpoint. I think we're slowly picking it up, but yeah, I know the set's good. I know the set's strong. I don't need to be biased in any sort of way. I can say, oh yeah, stuff isn't as strong, but like, I'll say particularly where Sons of Jacob were, like, they were way too good. So what happens if I don't want to come on and be like, oh, it's my first set where I'm really doing a lot of the lead design. I don't want to just, I got to make it something amazing. No, I want to make it something great for the community, and even if that's not what GOC was, that still means it's good for the community, because the amount, I mean, we just had to implement the one territory class enhancement. Like, games were getting out of control. How many games still are timing at nationals where people were talking about there's a timing issue? Well, the other thing was people don't really understand GOC. So no matter what, you're going to have pros and cons. I think people are going to love the set, and I think they're just going to have to, like, remember when Post-Exilics came out for LOC? No one played them. Wasn't until Jaden was like, hey, these guys are kind of good.
Yeah.
There's going to be a little bit
ends
of
up
that.
winning nationals with them.
Yep.
A couple years later.
Mm-hmm. There'll be a little bit of a transition, but it's going to be a little bit more difficult to deck build certain themes, because it's not just right in your face. We always said Disciples were cookie cutter, even playtesting in GOC. Disciples were cookie cutter. Well, they just won Nats, but at the same time, it was a variant with a bunch of other stuff. So it's just a matter of finding those themes and piecing everything together.
Yeah. So one thing you mentioned there was having to tone it down for the power level. And I think that's where, so you have two different levels of reviewing the new set, especially here in this early period, is people are looking at the cards. So they're seeing them for the first time in hands. And now they're looking at the design elements, the artwork choices, things like that. You know, the aesthetics of this is the cards for the new set, or these are the cards for the new set. But then you also have, when you drop down and you read that ability and how these themes play. And so it's almost like you're looking at it two different ways. And we've talked a little bit about the aesthetics and the comparisons to previous things. And those are things where everybody's going to have an opinion, and some people are going to absolutely love all the new design elements, and then some people are going to, you know, have a couple that maybe they don't jive with. But where everyone's really focused is the abilities of these cards, the themes, what the themes do, and things that you have known for a while, you know, being on the back end of helping create the set, running lead design, and seeing all the changes of the set. So like you say, Sons of Jacob used to be really strong. So it got toned down to land where it's at right now. I read Sons of Jacob, and if I think they're not that good, I'm not saying that I do, but I don't have the knowledge of where they were or any of that. So community's really excited about the cards, and then they read the abilities, and I think there's it's almost like, so you know that I like Zach Bryan, right?
Oh yeah.
You like Zach Bryan.
I got my pre-sale tickets today.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's coming to Birmingham and also going to Knoxville, and I'm going to one of those two shows. Knoxville is in May, so I was like, maybe I can sneak a Chris tournament in. But anyway, so he just released a new album, and the album coming off of his last album, I listened to it the first time through, and I was like, man, this sucks, because I stayed up till like midnight and listened to it, or it actually came out at like 11 here Central Time. Listened to it, didn't like it. Listened to it the next morning, I was like, it's really not that bad. It's just, it wasn't my expectation, so I'm having to change what I expect and, try to receive it in the way that it was created and all of that. And I think as the community, we're going to have to do that a little bit with this set, because GOC, you said it was in your face. It jumped off the page. Like, you could read this ability and you could see, I can take that ability, throw it in that deck, and it will do that. And I feel like a lot of the themes within this and a lot of the power of IR is in the sum of the pieces versus the individual pieces themselves, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that that's something that has not been the case since I've joined the game. When Prophecy of Christ had just came out and we joined the game, it was like, I'm going to grab these few cards and blend it with this. And it's been kind of just the art of the splash this whole time. What you can splash in. Like, people, as you said, disciples were cookie cutters. Meaning that, like, you can just grab disciples, build a deck, and it'd be a pretty competent, decent level deck. But people were still able to take Matthew, maybe Bart and Simon, and throw them in other decks. Well, you're probably not grabbing 3 sons of Jacob and throwing them in another deck necessarily, unless it's like Patriarch. You're not grabbing like 3, I mean, maybe you are 3 random wilderness heroes and throwing them in a deck and them being just super, super bonkers. You're not going to get the super bonkers. You might get something that's playable with some other things that pick up the identifier for wilderness, but I think a lot of the power level is going to be within the themes themselves, and that's different than we've seen. It almost feels a little bit like that's how Fall of Man was, and people got off of that pretty quick when Prophecy of Christ came out. But again, that's like a big design shift from Fall of Man to Prophecy of Christ. Seems like kind of the training wheels were taking off, and there was a lot of, oh, now I can splash this with that. And you had unity on stuff in Fall of Man with Flood. You had antediluvians that needed to play within themselves. There wasn't a lot of crazy splash stuff at the time. So that's where I read, and I have not played a lot of games, so this is at face value. But would you agree that the way that you guys built that was the sum of the parts are greater than the individual pieces that make up those themes?
Yeah, I think so. Like I like tying in little thematic elements and getting little 1-2 combos, and instead of just Resurrection Revealer was the foundation of my Type 2 deck. That guy negates neutral. I'm looking at him like, how does he, from a design perspective now, we can't even fit what he does on a card right now. So yeah, everything, you just look at GOC, and I just use Resurrection Revealer as an example. But when you get to look at a card, and it's like, okay, I can exchange with a certain type, or I can grab a broad type of dominance, and then I can also negate neutrals in territory. Like, that is very good. It's too much. Like,
that's a baseball player on steroids hitting home runs.
Yep. But what happens when that's all people were used to for the last year or two? And all of a sudden you go to this level that's unhealthy to stay at. So you got to be kind of the scapegoat. That's a little
hey,
redemption
that's
trick.
your card.
Hey.
Yeah.
I had to throw it in there.
Yeah, there you go.
To be, and like I said, I'm not in some sort of biased way. I don't think the set sucks at all. I do think it's very good. Like, Clay having so much quick ways to get to Aaron's staff and have CBN protection all over the place is very good. People talking about curses, and you have ways to deal with curses in IR sets is good. Same with negate neutral characters. And then how white plays. And there's there hasn't been any exploring yet. They're just looking at it on face value. The other thing is a comparison of the largest set that ever comes out, comparing it to a 129. Like that's not really realistic to compare those two.
Yeah.
So there's a lot. I mean, the same thing with Orange. Like Orange came out in GOC, it's underwhelming. I had a lot of say in Orange too. Like I had a lot of influence there. But when Orange came out, it just wasn't as in your face. And sure enough, Jaden abused it all over the place. And in Type 2, we were talking about not even playing with it because it was too good in Type 2 this year at Nats. It took a while for people to understand Orange and how it plays. So I think we'll be okay. I think it's a very good set. I can't wait to see the decks that come out of it.
Yeah. I do think I remember when GOC was coming out, and what we had to compare to primarily was POC and LOC. And when GOC came out, it was like I was sitting there looking at these cards like, what is going on? These cards are so stinking strong. Like, just individually, like you read the card, it's like, wow. Just like you said with Resurrection Revealer or whatever else. But one thing I recognize right off the bat, just reading Israel's Rebellion, because this is something I saw a lot at Nats when I was playing the GOC decks, is there's not nearly as much like CBP, like cannot be prevented, or CBN or CBI as in other sets, which I'm okay with, because when I played against the Thieves Demon defense, everything was CBP. I was like, there's no point in trying to prevent cards because everything's going to go off. Like Moses, Cloud of Witness Moses is just like obsolete now because everything was CBP, it felt like, or CBN. So I think, like, looking at these cards, it seems like there's a lot more balance. Like, hey, if it has CVP, it's probably not quite as strong. If it doesn't, then it's probably got a stronger ability, and I think that's definitely the way to do it. It's a little frustrating when you can't use your card. If somebody like negates it beforehand, you can't use it. But as far as a balance in the game, offense to defense, I do think that's a lot better. Like all the Herods, everything Herods did was like CVP. And it's like
every one of them, dude.
I was like, man, like what the world? Like every single one of them, like you couldn't just do like one or two. It was like all of them. So
well, there is Herod the Great. He's CBN.
Yeah. So
he's not CBP. If that makes you feel better.
Mm-hmm.
I doubt it does because I'm activating Herod's Temple.
You didn't even need Humble. Like Humble was obsolete last tournament season because it was just, you didn't need it. That was just kind of my initial like look at it. But I really like, as I was reading through the abilities on the cards, I really liked reading them, and I thought that if I was playing just like a IR versus IR, like an IR only, I think it would be really fun. Like the LOC only. Did we ever do GOC only in tournaments? Was that a thing?
I think it was offered. We haven't played it. I mean, not that you played a lot. This
There's like some online stuff,
but yeah, it wasn't as popular and big as LOC only. I feel like that one was pushed a little bit more at tournaments around here and stuff,
especially on the Zoom tournaments. I remember that. But like, if I was playing IR only, I would get like really excited about that because they're so thematic and just the way they play. I feel like it'd be a really good balance. So, but yeah, we'll see. We'll see if we may get like 4 or 5 people in a tournament to say, hey, you guys play more GOC. 4 or 5 people to play IR and just kind of see how it goes. Something like that, just to kind of like experiment and stuff like that.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I think another thing to keep in mind too is that with the power level of it being unlocked by playing themes, it makes the set not just more balanced among itself or whatever, but it also makes it easier for a new player to come in. We've already said that the borders are kind of the same color for the themes. They come in, all right, well, I've got IR. I'm grabbing all my blue stuff, putting it together. I'm grabbing my white stuff, my brown stuff. You start just putting the borders together and you start building out a theme, and it helps them know which cards go with which theme. And then as they put those cards together, because they look the same, now they play them together and they unlock kind of the potential of the theme. I mean, in the competitive scene, we've seen the last few years where you're splashing a lot of things. Let's just be honest. The players that are really good are the ones that know how to splash things and make things work, even if they're not supposed to work together. And then the ones that are kind of mid-level or that next tier down are the ones that struggle with. They look at a card like Solomon's Dream when LOC came out. Every deck that was competitive was running Solomon's Dream. And then you had a few players that were like, newer to the game or just not as advanced competitively. Say, well, how do you use this if I'm using a non-LOC deck? Well, you make it work. There's a way to make it work. There's at least a couple of characters you can split in with any theme and make it work and splash it. The Emmaus Road and Delivered. You know about Delivered, Tyler.
Come on, baby. I was going to cut in. Delivered in every deck.
Force Delivered. And, there's some players that are like, well, how do I make this work? And then there's players that, I don't care about the rules. Throw the rules out. I'm making this work. It's almost like I redid that, the Art of the Deal cover with Jay Chambers a while back and shared the Art of the Splash with Jay Chambers, because it's all about how can you make this theme work with this theme with this card, because you were wanting to get the strongest individual cards. And now this set is built on kind of flipping that. Missy Elliott would say, flip it and reverse it. You know what I mean? But you're looking at it a different way, and you've got to build those themes to get it unlocked. Like Sons of Jacob. This came up the other day on Discord, and I'm not talking about the specific conversation in detail, but there was some opinions that some of the Sons of Jacob kind of stink. Sure, I look at them at face value, and there's a couple I wouldn't even put in the deck if I was starting to build it, probably. And I would, use cards that are already existing in the card pool to offset that. But that doesn't mean that as a theme, they're bad. If you play that theme, those cards have a role to fill in that. Or they work with some 1 or 2 card combos that you were talking about, little quick lines of play, something that's not big setup for this big payoff. It's just this card with this card works really well together. I mean, getting out, who's the one? Is it Zebulon? That, okay, you may draw 2 while alone, restrict opponent from playing enhancements on evil characters with strength X or greater. Okay, they go through their turn, they get down to 8. Think about all the characters that have 8 toughness that people are playing right now. High Priest Ananias, I can't play enhancements, well, neither can you. Okay, something simple like that, okay, if you don't want to use that, don't use that. But if you play the ability and then you get to manipulate the hand, and they're underdecking this evil card from hand or from territory, or I'm getting this benefit. So you're either getting the benefit or you're weakening your opponent. And then if everything is built to do that theme, not splash that theme, but you're using Joseph's House. You can even use, Pharaoh's Throne Room or something like that. I mean, you can force them to get less cards in hand. And then you have a few characters that also draw to help you. You go in, draw, you can use Sad Hendrix if you want. Potentially draw 1, ban to a Patriarch. Guess what? They're all Patriarchs. So it's just like you got to build into the theme. And then you could add, I know we've talked about this, Tyler, you've got Gad that manipulates their hand, territory class. You can't use Sad Hendrix with him because he's Unity, I believe. So, you guys did do that to me, but you have the option to pair that with demons. You were just talking about Jaden unlocking the power of orange there from GOC. Use orange, use the Fallen Star. Now I've got 2 things that manipulate your hand in territory. And also I'm manipulating your hand with every time I come into battle with someone. There's a bunch of blue mass banding enhancements. I band them all in. You get rid of a card or I get a benefit. Get rid of a card, I get a benefit. And then if they put protection on that, you just automatically get the benefit. And so if you play that theme and then you get to play the dominant at the right time out of their hand to get rid of that evil enhancement that they were sitting on, they probably only have 1 at the opportune time for you to play that. You play it, you win the battle, you win the game. A lot of times I would assume that you're playing that, kind of going for that last rescue when you've manipulated their hand a good bit. But you play into the theme, you kind of unlock lines of play that build into that. And this conversation was happening, and it's like, at face value, this isn't going to run with GOC. Well, if you build the theme and then you play a game against a GOC infused deck, see how that goes first, because if you start manipulating a hand, or kind of, if you withstand an early push from GOC decks, I feel like they don't have the best backbone, because everything is built for so much speed up front. And guess what this set is all about? Wilderness and withstanding things and suffering through and just kind of existing long enough to then get your play.
Grinding it out.
I mean, that seems like a thematic way to answer, somebody that's trying to come out early and play big and get to their 5 as quick as possible. If you can slow them down and then do something. And I'm not just saying using blue as an example because I like playing blue, but this was one of the ones that came up, and I think people look at the Sons of Jacob and hear hey, they were really strong. We toned them down. This is where they are. And then they read the cards and they're like, they're really not that strong. But when you play them all together, I would imagine that it kind of unlocks those abilities.
So, I did play, I agree with you. When I played Jeremy and Josh, like I went up against their national decks with my Wilderness deck. And I beat Josh 5-1. And he brought up a great point. He was like, yeah, there was nothing I was going to do against you. His offense was built to ban to other GOC offenses. He's like, I was supposed to take your heroes and use all their stuff too and put you in weird situations. Just the fact that it's an Old Testament offense makes it strong against GOC. So that was big. And then Jeremy and I great game back and forth, and he just ran out. So this whole like, oh yeah, milling isn't good. He ran out of it. Like he just didn't have enough, and I just walked in at the end 5-4. It was a long game, but at the same time, I was in control of the game. And those are two phenomenal players with both their national decks that were GOC, and I won. So I don't know that when you hear IR isn't as strong, but they beat two top players that got second and third at Nats, it's kind of hard to argue.
That's another thing too, is like the way that they play. You're talking about taking Jeremy down to the wire there and then just walking in at the end. How many games do we see to where you get to the end of the game, but one person is just out of resources? Like we get a lot of games that go to time, but that's due to potential slow playing, not calling any names, but there's some slow playing within the community.
And on this podcast.
Hey, whoa. I'm not throwing darts, man.
I'm sorry he said that about you, John. I just can't believe it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. But the point is, like, when we get to timeout, you're not going around and looking at a game that's been super highly competitive to where, like, one player is about out of resources. Generally, they're usually kind of balanced, and it's, you know what I mean? Like, to where you go and you have a certain expectation of how this game is going to go. A lot of people build their decks for, all right, ideal scenario, I'm winning in 3 turns. These are my rescues. These are my blocks I want to get to. And then you have the more advanced players that are like, later in the game, this is a line of play. I could get to a block for my reserve. This is a line of play if I'm in this situation. But there's not a lot of those games that are going the distance, and like it's just one deck wearing the other deck out. I think that's kind of how Joseph Powell.
Yeah.
That's how he was playing with Samaritans, New Testament Gold, and Thieves. He was just trying to wear you down throughout the game. And then eventually, like, he just overpowers you because he's got such strong individual character value within those themes. And then their enhancements are strong. But he's not doing anything that's, like, super crazy blitzing out to this super fast thing. He's just playing good, solid amounts of cards on both good and evil side and making you play a game in a way that you're uncomfortable with. My favorite mechanic in the game is toss. And the reason is every time that we get in a toss scenario within a game, like me and my opponent, a lot of times they're asking me questions of how toss works. I've got it down pat because I've been doing it for so long, but it makes people play uncomfortable, makes them play on edge because they don't see that enough to be really comfortable with it. And then Wilderness it seems like a style of, or, like this set seems to be kind of ingrained with that same thought of it's not necessary resource denial, which, I mean, you have elements of that, like rain becomes dust. You're not letting them get those resources. But a lot of them is just, okay, I'm going to either, like with Sons of Jacob, pose an option for you to give up a resource or give me this benefit. But Wilderness has also got a little bit of potential meal built into it, or just like, I'm going to let you burn a resource and then I'm going to add to battle. And then I'm still going to get the rescue, but I'm making you burn those things. And then I can do that twice. And then I can reset with 40 years, basically, to where it resets the game for you, and I'm ready to rock and roll, and you've already burned your non-renewable resources, so to speak. So it just seems like it's going to make people play a different type of game than they've been used to with all of the speed and splash of the last few years. To quote my boy Brad here, he's going to make people not really have an answer to a lot of things and try to pose enough. What is it you always say? Like, you want to make it to where anytime they do something, you're either getting a benefit or you're taking advantage of it. And that's why you're a grindy player. And that's why this is kind of a set built for you, is you can set those elements up within these themes to where it's like, you do that, all right, I'm going to do this, and somehow it's going to benefit me in the end. It might take a little while, but you're going to burn through your resources, and I'm still going to be standing here.
Dang, mic drop. I thought Brad had something.
I thought we were going to get a response.
Man.
Brad's just like, yep. I mean,
that's it.
that's how I roll.
I mean, you were the one talking about, every time what's that demon that goes out there and shuffles a card in your hand every time you search or, negate neutral. It's kind of all the same thing.
Oh, Fallen Star, if you search,
Yeah.
you have to get rid of a random card from hand.
So you search, but then you got to get rid of a card, that type of thing.
Yeah.
Goshen, you're tossing everything. It's all kind of the same, just different
Right.
ending, but it's kind of the same thing.
I would say that, like, the way that GOC wins, it seems like, is really favorable to getting dominance early, pushing and generating resources as fast as possible. And obviously you want to do that with any deck that you build right now to be competitive. Yeah, I mean, you have to try to at least make sure you're keeping pace. But it seems like this is the Virginia of college basketball, possibly, to where you're trying to slow the game down just a bit and then get someone uncomfortable, and you're playing less possessions or whatever and eating the clock up type of thing. And at the end of it, you're going to be sitting there, right, Tyler, and beating Jeremy
Yeah.
after he goes undefeated in Type 1.
Yep.
So I definitely think that there's potential for the themes to be better than the individual card value, although I will say at this point I do agree with people that might have the assessment that individual card value is drastically lower than GOC, but that's obviously, like you said earlier, that's to be expected. Yeah. GOC is the strongest set that the game's had, probably much akin to like when Warriors first came out and was kind of crazy on the power level and whatever. But included in IR, obviously you've got ultra rares. You've also got some player created cards from the winners of Nationals last year. I won't say that we have to go in any particular order, but you see which one's up there first on the outline here. But you've got 4 of them in this set, and that's Eliezer of Damascus, which was created by yours truly. You've got Righteous Seeker, which was created by Mr. Josh Kinnett. Wandering Israelites, that is the card from Jeremy Chambers. I'm a little disappointed we didn't get a chicken squeezed into the frame somewhere, but I guess it'll be okay. And then Bearing Grudges is a card from Josh Potratz. So you have had a hand in seeing these cards throughout the development of Israel's Rebellion. You've seen various changes to them. You see how they ended up now. Which card, which ones went through the most work to settle on where they are, or changes from the initial, whatever like obviously my card I went through like 3 different cards before I submitted one. But once you guys got the submissions, which ones did you guys have to work on the most to get it to where it's at now?
Yeah, it was yours.
I knew that.
The strength wasn't always 0. It was a 1, right? Because he was the one of the 2 sons, and he was the first son. Is that correct?
No, I actually had it 1 in 10 because most Bible scholars believe this is the guy from Genesis 24 that took 10 camels and went to find a wife for Isaac. So it was one man with 10.
Okay. Yeah, because I remember I wasn't sure if his draw was always the exact same. You had him banding to a Genesis hero, and then his numbers were different. So he had the most change. Bearing grudges always had some sort of tie to it. Oh, it was a 1-for-1. So I got to discard my hero, and if I did, then I got to discard your hero or banish it if an OT curse was in play. And finally, it was like, I was like, this. Why do I have to discard my own hero for this? This is so simple. Like, it's a territory class killer. Like, why don't we just keep the banish and it's just discard a hero? We're like, oh yeah, that's better.
Yeah,
was the only
that does
change
sound
there.
much better.
Yeah, and it was simpler too. Like, I don't need to discard mine to discard yours. Like, just it's a territory class kill. Righteous Seeker, that was always the same. Wandering Israelites, Jeremy cheated a little bit. I hoped he asked what like the theme was, and then asked if the exchange was okay. I was like, I think so. I think all we did was just say you may draw 1 and exchange. It was a you may draw 1, you may exchange. Then it went from just draw 1 and exchange. I think that was it. So yours had the most change, and then both brown cards were minimal change.
So I guess you've got 2 that's in one theme, being the brown on the enhancement and the evil character there. Then you have Righteous Seeker, that's white. So you can throw it in white anything, and it kind of works with anything because it just bands to a hero. And then you've got blue here. So all of these cards are playable within the set, but then potentially could see play outside of that because even, I guess, type 2, and I think that's where Jeremy was working with his card. So you get to come in, draw 1, exchange this card with an evil wilderness human. And I think he was worried about whether you guys were going to allow it to be another generic, or it had to be a specific, like a specific one or something.
Yeah.
Because I guess you can loop that 4 times and do the 4 activation in type 2 if you want to get a draw 4. So I guess he beats me. I get a draw 3 on my card potentially if conditions are met. He gets a draw 4 in type 2. So whatever. But then you have Righteous Seeker that just bands to a hero. That's a phenomenal card for booster draft. And I mean, from Josh Knitt, what do you expect, right?
Yeah.
And to be able to grab it with Music Leader involves music. It's got a couple of identifiers that help it out there. So it seems like within the limitations that we had of Mono Brigade, no modifiers, it has to be a character or an enhancement. Can't be, artifacts, neutral cards, lost souls, anything like that. Just characters or enhancements. Seems like we settled on what we've seen here. 4 of the winners. Is Jaden the only one that is not?
Yeah.
So, and I guess we'll be seeing it. I heard a rumor we'll be seeing his card actually as a brand new card in the root set. So
I don't know.
I don't know if that's something that is in concrete, but I did hear that. How would you rate these cards on playtesting? Which one's got the most burn?
Right. I mean, Righteous Seeker didn't get a lot of playtesting because we were worried about that broad of an ability on a hero, but we just couldn't.
You don't say.
Yeah. And we just couldn't find ways to break them. Wandering Israelites, I was always concerned about just because it was the draw 1 and the exchange for type 2. But I've said it before with Wilderness that, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, we can go back to Wilderness because it's an established identifier, but really we're going to hit Wilderness and go from there. So it was like, you know what? that's a really good card. And yours is the missing link in some bands that just make it go a bit crazy. So had to change yours up.
Yeah, well, it's also a decent band because I noticed that obviously I don't have any identifier. It doesn't look as cool as Righteous Seeker there with the generic. What is that? Generic, symbolic, and then involves
Yeah.
music. But mine is Genesis 12 through 24 for you guys that might play blue. So Cloud of Witness Abraham can search him out and then ban him, and then he can ban any patriarch. And there might be a patriarch in Roots that's worth that's worth banding to. I'm hoping
Hopefully.
because I bought that Jacob the Wrestler card at Nationals, the playtest card. So fingers crossed that's in there.
Yeah.
But moving on to the ultra rares, and this is where I would imagine that these cards were 3 of the more fun cards to use and build around. Especially like Moses. There's so many ways to get Moses turn 1, and then he can go and grab an enhancement so he can set up and enable something quick and early. Now, what you choose to set up and enable, who knows? I mean, I guess that's up to the deck builder in which direction you want to take the deck. 40 years seems really fun. Being able to, basically, this card has a lot of a Jared feel, if you will. Choose who you're going to protect, hero and evil character, and then underdeck everything else. And it's like, I mean, I guess this leaves fortresses out, but underdeck characters and all artifacts, which would include curses and covenants, which are probably going to be prevalent in the set. This is a dual alignment ultra rare here, so good and evil. And then Israel's Rebellion is take a curse from a deck reserve. You can discard your evil wilderness human in battle to shuffle all lost souls. So this plays into that deck you were talking about here in the early part of the podcast with Hide the Souls. But these look like super fun cards to use. So first, how fun were they to design, create, and then play test? And then what do you think their impact and usage is going to be with the set? Do you think people are going to get off of some of those staple dominants to create spaces for these dominants, since 2 of them's dominants? And then how do you see Moses getting used? Because with all the new ways to Moses too, that added with what we already have, seems like people could go to Cloud of Witness Moses to try to shut things down. And do you think this one's better?
Yeah, this Moses is really, really, really good. I do like Mount Sinai. I like how easy it is to get, and I like Cloud Moses with Mount Sinai working together to where I can still generate resources on my own with Cloud Moses out. There's a lot of different builds. You're going to see, I think you're going to see the Plague version as well. So you got Friend of God with a Plague deck because there's some missing pieces that I feel like a Plague offense needed that came out. So I think we're definitely going to push into a Moses meta where there's a lot of different builds for Moses, how quickly you can get them out and what you can do and which way you go. This Moses from IR is a beast. Like Jacob, follower of God, gets a Genesis enhancement and bans to a Genesis hero or patriarch or a meek hero. And this is very similar, but it's more broad. So the enhancements he can get out, he's only going to get better. As for Israel's Rebellion, anytime you can grab a resource and have a chump block, it's going to be played. Chump blocks have always been played throughout the history of Redemption. Just being able to also grab that curse is huge. So I still think you could have your 6 dominants and then throw this one in and have your block and be good. 40 years is phenomenal. I think people know it's good. I don't think they realize just how good it is. The potential of when you can use it on offense and defense, like that flexibility is insane, especially if you're running both Wilderness on offense, defense. They come at you with a band on either they block you with the band or they rescue with the band. I have 40 years, like all but potentially one of your guys are gone. So all characters, all artifacts, it's a big swap, and the way Wilderness is built is it can recover. So I do think you're going to see 40 Years and Israel's Rebellion Index. I don't know how much you see of them together, but I do think they're ultra rare for a reason. They're very good.
Now, Brad, first of all, you can tell me what you think of these ultra rares, but then I kind of have a question about whether or not you're going to find use for this Moses in your music deck, your music Ruth deck, because he does have the identifier for you. He's a musician, and now he's a CBN. You can take an OT green or white enhancement from deck, may ban to Wilderness. You might not use, but I mean, it's kind of like another David search, but maybe not quite as good because you're not going to get initiative as much, but it gives you a little splash of green while keeping the white. You could force delivered if you wanted. Just saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, speaking of delivered, now that you mention it again, I didn't see it the entire tournament, Nationals tournament. Not one time did somebody play delivered, but well, against me at least. But that's a side thought. Yeah, this Moses looks really like. I was trying to think of all the cards that I would want to grab with him. Having a hard time. I really have to like dig through and go back, see everything. But yeah, he's kind of like he's kind of like David in the way that he can grab what he needs and ban, but he can ban to a non-meek. So that's a lot better.
Yeah.
So you start with maybe Righteous Seeker, starts off the band, and then maybe ban to somebody that can ban to Moses. Moses bans. You're going to have a big band in there. And yeah, I mean, I can't see me not playing him this tournament season as of now in
There
some
you go.
deck.
I can see the wheels turning for you. So how can I make him grind? But yeah, I'm super big on like the fact that he gets to grab some cool different enhancements and then just opening it up what he can grab. We've already heard seen on the Discord, he can go and grab numerous. But is that the biggest payoff? I think Josh Potratz was asking, is that the biggest payoff you can get from going turn one Moses? And then like what else could you do? And it's like this card, if you play it, you could put your own spin on what it does. It enables you to get creative with it. And maybe that makes it a little bit more splashable than some of the other cards within the set. I know we were talking earlier about how you're not going to get a lot of crazy broken splashable things, but I mean, you know, this is one that you could see in a couple of different deck builds. And I know that Tyler's motto for this deck building season, I guess if you have the main playing tournament season, this would be the deck building season where people are learning cards and building decks. It seems like your motto is there's a lot of different varieties of builds, and it's like every theme has that. And I mean, you know, we were talking earlier about a Genesis deck that I built that I just threw together, and it's nothing that I've seen anybody else talking about. Not that I think it's super good, but it's just one way you can take it. And it seems like with this Moses, there's 100 different ways you could take it if you wanted to go that way. Not to mention, and this is another thing, and I don't know that anyone has thought about this in great detail, but interrupt the battle with Transfiguration, go and get Moses. Hey, there's Moses. And then he can go and grab a different resource and then start a band to a Wilderness hero. And so you could technically throw that in if you splash the right colors. You know, again, forcing the splash, because we talked about earlier how this set doesn't lend itself so freely to that. So you'd have to force it, but that'd be a kind of a cool thing.
Yeah, Clay Grain already goes so well together. You can grab Moses, and then you get Elijah, and all of a sudden you got Clay Green right there. I mean, it's really easy to slam Matthew and everything, attack with Matthew and hope to get Transfiguration turn one, and then you're going into an Elijah and a Moses, and then Moses is grabbing whatever else you need.
Yeah, just the door's wide open on it.
Mm-hmm.
So, Brad, what do you think about these other two ultra rares, the dominants? They seem to be more akin to your play style of being able to manipulate your opponent and get you a free chump block while grabbing a resource, or, hey, we're going to reset the game a little bit. you're not big on reset. I don't think I've ever seen you play a New Beginning or anything, but you have been around it enough. I've played it enough on you, so you see the impacts of it. And then if you're building a wilderness offense, I mean, I could see you enjoying that card. So, what are your thoughts on those two?
Yeah, the only time I really played like a reset deck was when everybody was playing Widow, and you had to try to spam 3 nails in there as best you can. Try to have like 10 ways to 3 nails, because otherwise it was like game over. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, honestly, that's one of them cards. I would just have to stick it in there and play it. Like I don't know how it would play out. I'll just have to use it a few times and see if it's something that I could really take advantage of fully, especially with the Unity. It'd probably be a little bit easier to have Unity on the evil side, I would think, because you could just probably have like one evil character down, play it. But yeah, and then the other ones, like you said, I mean, taking a curse from deck. I was trying to think of like what's the best curse to take for an immediate like battle winner. You know, obviously there's some that you could use later on, but you know, if you're using this in battle, for instance, well, let's see, I guess it's on your opponent's turn. So I mean, you could pick up like a blindness or something to try to put down next turn. But I would think that you would probably want something in battle immediately. So I was trying to think of something like that, but I just hadn't really looked at the cards yet, so I don't know.
Yeah, but think about this. When's the last time you looked at curses as something you want to have an immediate battle winner off of, or potential to win a battle off of?
Never, except for like pagan sailors.
Okay.
You know, somebody like that is gonna.
You're having to open it up and kind of explore it a different way off of this cool ultra rare that's in IR, which is really cool. And I think obviously it's the namesake of the game. It was going to be an ultra rare, but I think people probably could have guessed Moses being an ultra rare, but that's the one I don't think people would have thought immediately. Being that he's in the starter deck, we've already got a couple of versions of Moses. We just had one in GOC. Here we go. Moses is now catching up to David, and maybe I don't know, in rotation it might have David beat. I think there's probably more because you get the Legacy Rare, you've got the GOC, you've got Cloud of Witness, you've got this one. It might beat David in rotation.
That's a good trivia.
That is good trivia. Someone do the research because we will not. But I guess we'll get ready to wrap up this episode. Definitely want to thank you guys for listening along, and want to thank Tyler for joining and kind of giving us a little bit of his opinion on the set, and, you know, trying to let us know that the set is not necessarily watered down. It's just toned down. I guess that's a fair way to put it, right, Tyler?
Yeah, I'm good with it.
But I do really, really think that people are going to enjoy themes once they start playing with them, because it seems like there is power within the set. It's just unlocked by playing the themes, which is, you know, a fun way to have to deck build coming off of so much splash the last few years. And that's what we always talk about as players. We always share our opinions, and it's always like, well, I want to not have to play this deck this way in order to be competitive. Okay, well, now play it however you want. Or if you're going to use the new set and find the power level within it, you're going to have to play into themes, which is different than we've had to do the last few years. So that's cool. But thank you guys for joining here. Brad, co-host, thank you for doing your duty. I guess we'll send you your paycheck this week.
Come on.
And just a reminder that the Lackey Grand Prix signups are open until September 3rd. And then Him's House of Highlights, hosted by Jared, is going to be running every other Friday, and I believe the next one is going to be this Friday. So reach out to Jared, fill his inbox with your questions, let him know you're going to sign up. It should be a fun time. And if you're not even playing, if you've just got a few minutes, you can always hop in there. There's a channel for, you know, just conversation, hanging out. Kind of cool to be able to talk with other people in the community that you don't get to see all the time. But that is that, and I think for the second time recording this episode, we might be done. So we're going to piece it out there, and we'll catch you guys next time. Peace. All right, guys, that's going to do it for this episode of the Threshing Floor podcast. Definitely want to thank you guys for tagging along, listening to us talk about our early impressions of the set. Hey, reach out. Let us know what you think about the set. Get in Discord. Let's start the conversation. Let's talk about all these new cards coming into the card pool. Definitely want to thank Tyler for coming on and talking to us a little bit about it as well. Kind of seeing a little bit from his side, being involved with the design. And want to remind you to check out Him's House of Highlights. Sign up for the next tournament there, hopefully happening this Friday. And then also we have Lackey Grand Prix signups open until September 3rd. So get out there, build some decks, play the game, share it with, whoever you meet, new starter decks. It's a great time to have people jumping into the game. So get out there and mix it up. Peace.